You're listening to Crossing Borders with ANYP for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANYPodcast or visit us on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and swear I'll fall on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me solid through and through, danced a jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky soul still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Crossing Borders with ANYP. We are back. We are finally back. I feel as though we took about a month off, but I'm your host, Shane, and I am joined as always by our Canadian Connect, Connor. Connor, how are you?
I am doing good. I've been enjoying some much needed vacation, and well, now we're back. Not from the show, but from life.
Yeah, that wasn't exactly a I got suspended, I'm now back type of thing. This was he genuinely went on vacation. Where'd you go again?
I went to attend my graduation in Liverpool, and then I spent some time in Amsterdam and a couple days in London. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and congratulations again. It was your master's degree, right?
It was.
Awesome. What's it in? I should know these things since you're part of our team.
Management.
Okay. All right. Well, good. You can take over for me when I retire in 3 weeks when I get too tired of this. But no, honestly, it's great having you back. It was awesome listening to you and Elle on your Kelly Green Hour segment. And thank you both for the digs at me and my inability to bet. I appreciate it. So if you guys have not heard, I know. He reminds me all the time, and thank him so much for getting you involved in the gag that is my betting life. But if you have not listened to the recent episode of Kelly Green Hour, please do yourselves a favor and do so. They do sit there and make fun of my inability to ever come out on the winning side of a bet. But Crossing Borders. So it's been about a month or so, maybe 3 weeks since we've been here, and we had only had one or two episodes of the kind of new format where we select some topics and then you and I just go ahead and we find random tweets completely unbeknownst to each other, what those tweets may be, and we just let the natural flow of conversation occur. If you happen to hear in the background where we are, where I am, it is storming like crazy tonight. So if it feels or sounds as though the world is ending in your vehicle, I'm sorry. I will try to noise reduce that as much as possible in the editing. But let's jump into some of these topics. We do have one for each of the core four teams here in Philadelphia. Connor, you were away for a while, so let's let you select the topic number one. What do you want to go with?
I gotta hear it, so I'm gonna go with the Phillies. I wanna hear your diagnosis on the problem. I do see it almost every night at about 8:05 my time, 7:05 your time, right before the game starts, or by the time the first or second inning's over and they're down by a bunch of runs already. So let's start with the Phillies offense.
Yeah, let's
get the depressing stuff out of the way.
That's fair. All right, so the topic that we had chose was just diagnosing the Phillies offensive struggles for this year, something that I don't really think very many of us could have ever anticipated, the kind of offensive struggles that they've gone through. So the tweet I selected was actually something that is really relevant to just right now and over the last few weeks, or few days, really. The tweet comes from Matt Breen. It's at Matt_Breen. He is a blue checkmark Twitter user. If you guys do not know who he is, he does write and cover all types of baseball, so this is a legit thing. The Philadelphia Phillies are 0 for 10 with the bases loaded since Friday. And immediately under that is one of our followers, and obviously a follower of Matt's as well. And the only things I have ever interacted with this particular follower, the only thing he states is just fire Gabe or fire Malley. And he made no exception here with the outside of the fact that he included them both in one tweet and one tweeted response. So right now with the Phillies offense completely incapable of coming through with runners in scoring position has been a big thing for me this year. How about for you? What we don't have to go into your tweet just yet, but what do you kind of make of their 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position or with the bases loaded in less than a week?
I gotta admit, I don't get the chance to watch a whole lot of Phillies baseball. I mean,
Why you sound happier than us?
I've really hoped to see more, and because of the signing of Bryce Harper and stuff, I thought I would see more up here. But it's like Yankees, Red Sox, Blue Jays all day, every day up here on the TV. So that is why I had to get DAZN so that I could watch preseason football tomorrow for the Eagles game. So, but overall, it's so hard to think of words. You do so well putting it together at 7:05 right as the game starts. But I mean, it's hard to watch. It's painful when I do watch it. It's just like they are incapable of doing anything as soon as there's runners on base or in scoring position. More importantly, but runners on base in a general sense is just there's nothing. They don't do anything with it. They can never do anything with it, and it's so painful. I mean, we loaded this team with offensive talent, and let's not rule out the absolutely, besides the Yankees, I think we've had the worst luck. We went out and signed durability, and durability fell apart for us. So let's not forget how unlucky we have also been this season, and one of probably the top 3 unluckiest teams this season. But I mean, guys like Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Rhys Hoskins, Gene Segura, you got to be able to pull that together. That's supposed to be your niche, runners in scoring position and getting them to touch home plate and not on the way to the dugout because you just got the third out.
Which seems to be happening and occurring all too often this season for the Philadelphia Phillies. Here's a number for you, and this is as of 3 o'clock today. John Stolnis had put this out. He is a writer and show host for The Good Fight. If you guys listen to that podcast or read any of their articles, we've had a few of their writers on our shows as guests. The Mets playoffs odds per Fangraphs now stand at 41.7%. The Phillies, 18.4%. A team that was in first place throughout most of the beginning portion of the season, looking as though they were going to run away with things, and then everything happened. And if you'll remember, you may not, because I don't think you were part of our team at this point last year quite yet, but last year, LJ, your host of Kelly Green Hour, and I had him on an In-Cap We Trust earlier this week, he had stated probably right around the All-Star break, it would not shock him if the Phillies finished third in the division last year, the way that they were kind of breaking down right around that trade deadline point and beyond, which was unfathomable to most of us at the time. We were sitting here thinking there's no way. This team was in first place all year. We got 7 weeks of the season left. Last year's team was significantly lesser in the talent range that this team is. And this year, we'll be fucking lucky to finish in third place. We very well may finish in fourth. That is, again, completely unfathomable as to what this team is doing right now. Injuries or not, circumstances or not, there should be enough offensive firepower here. And there should be, and this is not necessarily a fault of the players, although I blame the players a lot for this season, those pitchers need to be competent enough to give them a chance. It is an almost weekly occurrence. They are letting up 10 or more runs a game. It's insane. I have offensive stat numbers for the Philadelphia Phillies right now and where they offensively rank as a team. As a team, and this is in all of baseball, they rank 18th in average at 247, 22nd in home runs at 145. Now, you would sit here and think a team that has your superstar in Bryce Harper, Rhys Hoskins, an up-and-coming star at first base with power, JT Realmuto, who is no longer in that cavernous, awful park down in Miami. He's here. Andrew McCutchen for 59 games we had this year. Trading for Jay Bruce. Michael Franco and the way that he started this season. There's no way that this team should be 20 freaking second in home runs. They are then 18th in runs scored at 540, 20th in OPS at 745, 16th in strikeouts, and 10th in walks. So the thing that their entire offense is predicated on is walking and drawing these walks, seeing a lot of pitches, and supposedly doing damage on those pitches. They're 10th in walks, so they can't even do that shit correct. 10th. They're barely in the top third. I think that's
the best offensive category we have, actually.
That is the best offensive category that we have. That and pitches seen per plate appearance. This is what confuses me about Malley, even about Gabe to this point, and the philosophy of offensively put forth for the Philadelphia Phillies. Selectively aggressive is what they preach. The whole reason that you want to create a game flow that says we want to make you pitch and pitch and pitch and exceed those pitch limits, just what we typically would be seeing from starting pitchers and relievers, is to increase the likelihood of mistake pitches so that you can then, I don't know, fucking swing a bat and capitalize on them. What do the Phillies do? They wait and see if there's going to be a second mistake pitch in a bat or a third mistake pitch in an at bat. They fail to execute in their own goddamn philosophy. That is inexcusable. Malley's got to go. Kapler at this point, as much as I love him, and he has not been given the tools completely for success, he's on a hot seat right now too, and there's no way to beat around that. This is bad. This is a bad team that I think we overshot our expectation for.
I definitely agree with that. And I mean, look at you can just look down the road at the New York Yankees. I mean, the New York Yankees had an inexperienced manager who's second year managing this year. And he has had worse luck than us and has still managed to they're a top 5 offense through it all, even with the pitching issues. At least their pitchers give them a chance. If anything, they give them a chance and they don't have to put up 10 runs every night like our offense, who can barely put up 5. So, I mean, there's only so much we can talk, I suppose, about bad luck or about bad pitching or any of that, because you look at the Yankees and I don't find them on paper leaps and bounds better. Call me crazy.
They're very similar.
Call me crazy because of the way it looks now, but they're not that far off. Look at their pitching rotation.
No,
look
that's what I was going to say.
Look at their pitchers. J.A. Happ has been terrible, horrible. Who else is that? The Tanaka's been dreadful. The guys who are not giving him a chance are the ones who are supposed to give him a chance. And their bats on paper, they probably wish they could have some of our bats at this point. They haven't even had some of their biggest bats all year. Didi just came back. Stanton has barely even touched the field. So they would probably love to be in the position we are in as far as players on the field and players on a team. And you know what? Those guys would probably do something in New York. That's the sad reality of this situation. So, I mean, we think about it and we're like, oh, bad luck, bad pitching, injuries. The Yankees have almost had tick for tack, had the same type of season we've had, except they execute. And I don't know, maybe I'm crazy because the Yankees are that much superior to the Phillies, but on paper, they're similar. From my eyes, maybe my eyes. I mean, I do wear glasses and contacts, so.
All right. Well, why don't you give us your tweet and we'll see if there was anything we didn't cover talking about it from mine.
Well, I guess this one kind of looked at the rotation, but the middle point is what I want to drive home. So this is from @Justin _ Klug. I don't really know. It's Klug. Klo. Okay, there we go. He's a blue check mark too. So
he's a good fight writer as well.
There you go. He says, look, Jason Vargas makes rotation better, but the frustration you're seeing comes from the thick binder of problems that are both someone's and no one's fault. They got us to the point in which the Phillies needed to trade for Jason Vargas to make the rotation better. I understand that's more revolving around the rotation, but it's that middle point. The frustration seeing comes from the thick binder of problems that are both someone's and no one's fault. There are a lot of things that we can blame on someone, but there is also a lot of things that are nobody's fault. And just as I preach about not talking about bad luck, that is literally just bad luck. Like I said, we went out and we signed for health and durability, and everyone who has shown any sign of durability in their career has suffered coming to Philadelphia. So that hurts.
At least recently.
Exactly. I mean, you had McCutchen, who was on base almost all the time. You could almost count on him scoring. Even if someone wasn't hitting the ball, you could almost count on him getting around the bases and scoring.
And crazy enough, in 59 games, he scored 45 runs and was on base at a 378 clip, which would be good enough for second on the team. I only know these stats because I literally just wrote them in an article today that I'm posting tonight. But when I looked at that, I realized how important he was to the offense. But in 59 games, some of which weren't even started, 45 runs, infinitely better number. Gene Segura was hitting 325 with him in the lineup. Bryce Harper was hitting with runners in scoring position more often, so he was able to do damage because apparently he has no fucking idea what to do in the batter's box when people are not on base. And Rhys Hoskins had the opportunity to drive in people and clean things up because Bryce Harper was getting walked some. Everything made sense with Andrew McCutchen in the lineup, and sure, come to Philadelphia, tear an ACL.
Yep, pretty much. So I guess that's more or less where my tweet was coming from. It's just it is literally a binder of problems. They thought that they had the team coming into the season, and there was question marks. And we all sat there and we said, what could go wrong? And everything we talked about going wrong has literally gone wrong. And that binder of problems is just growing because some things that we didn't even say would be a problem have become a problem. So that just...
How much do you think it weighs on an offense? Now I've played, and for me, I know personally, I press a little bit. If my pitchers are struggling, and I know that we need to put together 5, 6, 7, 8 runs a night in order to have a chance, I press and I take risks that I otherwise would not. We see a ton of outs on the bases from this Philadelphia Phillies team. We see a lot of guys who are just underwhelming in the box. Do you think that this is an offense that, had the pitching not been so bad, as Justin point out in his tweet, the fact that Vargas is now one of our better pitchers after acquiring him at the deadline, do you think that if we didn't need to rely on the Smileys and Vargases of the world and a bone-spurred Jake Arrieta, that maybe the offense could just take a breath for a minute and realize if I score 3, 4, 5 runs tonight, it still can be enough. My pitchers will keep me in this game. The Phillies don't have that same ability to
I almost don't even think that would be the mentality, because it just that the way that they're playing is just, I don't even think that mentality could ever come into their mind to think like that. They're just which I respect that they're an aggressive team. I won't deny that. I respect that they're aggressive and that they're trying to get the runners in scoring position, even though they don't score beyond that. But I don't think that they would have that mentality, or that mentality would work. I think it might actually make it worse if they knew they only had to put up 3 runs a night or 4 runs a night. They might be an even worse offense off if they didn't have to be pressured and to be aggressive every night. But, I mean, we could probably go on about these guys all night because it's just so sad, so frustrating.
Yeah, it's not great.
This was our hope. I mean, there was polls out who's winning the next championship, and obviously we are in Eagles football city, so
granted, has really incepted your brain.
Man, it's an Eagles like town where I live because of me. I make it that way. So
well done.
I mean, we are, but it's true. We are an Eagles town, and it's shown by the polls that people put up. It's always the Eagles who are on top. I mean, I saw a poll today. What's more important to Philly sports, Carson's health or Ben's jumper? I thought it was a really funny one to see too. But Carson's health was winning by a mile. It was ahead by 30%, 40%. because that's just the city that I say that we live in, but that you guys live in. That's just the city.
Oh, we're adopting you. You're into. You're an acquired piece of land.
I mean, we put the Phillies as the second bet. Well, actually, they were the third best odds of winning a championship in most of those. I think it went Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, and then Flyers, because, of course, we're not a Flyers city, it seems, as much as we love them.
We are, but we desperately need to be putting a good product on the ice for them to matter.
Exactly.
Town was rocking in 2010.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's difficult to watch. Maybe the pressure was too much. Maybe they just can't handle the pressure. Maybe Bryce Harper was better off in good old Washington, who you never know. Maybe they might pass us in due time as well.
Oh, Washington is ahead of us.
Oh, exactly. Maybe they stay there.
It's certainly appearing.
Hold the pace.
All right, well, let's roll into our next. You pick the first, I'll pick the second. But before we do, a quick word from our sponsor, the Jackdolls. If you recognize the name, that is because it is our intro-outro music here for all of our ANYP segments and podcasts. We have different various clips of different songs, some more verbally friendly for our Kelly Greenhour, and then others certainly a little more freer with those lyrics. But the Jackdolls, they will be, if you are near the Philadelphia area, they will be performing at a 6 to 8 week long Renaissance Fair tour that they are doing. So if you are into that, it is a fantastic time. There is wonderful, wonderful food options there. I cannot tell you how fat I get just from spending one single day at a Renaissance Fair, but it is very, very worth it. So the Jackdolls, you're going to go to www.thejackdolls.com. You can purchase t-shirts, CDs. I think they have keychains out and other various little knick-knack type of things on their website. But stumbling on words here, to help support a local band. They are quite good, and we quite enjoy them. So we'll get back into crossing borders mode here. You mentioned it's an Eagles town, so let's roll the Eagles for the next point. So why don't you welcome us up with your first Philadelphia Eagles tweet?
I want to start to be positive, so I was kind of hoping you wouldn't pick the Eagles next, but let's go. This from Elliot Shore Parks, our favorite blue check mark. But this has some substance to it, okay?
Did you ever listen to him, by the way? Like, you ever hear his voice? I don't know if you ever listened to Go Birds Pod or anything on 94.1.
I've heard his voice, but I can't listen to their shows. I can't. I
hate that guy's voice.
I mean, maybe there's people who think the same of us, so we shouldn't speak too harshly.
Oh, sure. It's easy. We're standing behind a microphone and no one's going to know what the hell we look or sound like in real life. It just is what it is. But damn, that guy is what a awful, he just has a voice I want to punch. I didn't even know that was possible, but it's there.
Well, as much as we hate him, he actually brought some good substance for the show. So the tweet that I took was, the Eagles defense is currently practicing without 7 players at this time. I can't remember the time, but I think it's up to like 9 or 10 players now. Without 7 players expected to have a big role this season. The injury issues are becoming hard to ignore and will put plenty of pressure on offense early on. So, yeah, the Eagles are now, I think we're at like, he said 7 with key roles, and now we've lost Joe Osman and somebody else went down since that tweet went up. But the injuries, I agree, are starting to become hard to ignore. And unlike the Phillies offense, I don't think the Eagles have to worry. I think that Eagles offense will put up the numbers, will put up the points, and undoubtedly will be able to probably average in the top 5, if not top 3, top 1 of the league this year in points per game. But it's, can we get these healthy or these injured players back and healthy? Because, I mean, you look at our defensive end depth and people are like, oh, Joe Osman or whatever, he was poised to have a big role in that defense because the defensive ends are so light. You go Brandon Graham, you go Derek Barnett, and then you got Vinny Curry, rotational. Joe Osman, rotational. Sharif Miller, rotational. they're all rotational backs. So
Sharif
you need
Miller does not look great.
and yet from what I've heard, not looking great, not doing so great.
And with Osman going down, man, like, I can't stress enough the importance of a guy like him getting his shit together and being at all remotely serviceable, even if it's just for 10, 15 snaps a day. Or it has to happen.
Exactly. I mean, we saw Chris Long. Chris Long, I mean, people
Do you
act
think
like
that he comes back?
I think Connor Barwin has a better chance than Chris Long, but that's my personal perspective on it. And you know what? I wouldn't mind Connor Barwin. But, I mean, the point that I was trying to make was that, like, we act like Chris Long was a massive integral part of the team, which I don't deny he was. He played 32% of snaps for us. Yeah. That's it. That's all you have to do. So Sharif Miller, like you said, 10 to 15 snaps a game can be serviceable enough that Jernigan and Jackson close the pocket and he gets out there and he puts pressure on the quarterback 10 times a game. That's all we need. That's why if Long comes back, I'm not against it. If Barwin comes back, I'm not against it because either are better options than what's there now, I think. I think they're better options than even Vinny Curry. And I love Vinny Curry. But I still think
he's
they're
a
better
one-trick
options. Guy. Well, exactly. I mean, they're just rotational backs who that's all they are. They're one-trick ponies. They're going to probably bull rush that guy, that tackle on the end, and hope that they can get in, or that Cox and Jackson and Jernigan can make the pocket collapse and the tackles have to move inwards. That's all you can hope at this point. But then there is the safeties with McLeod. A lot of people are worried about McLeod and the Cyprian signing, although Camus going down, I think, makes the Cyprian signing look all more.
He's a hybrid. Yeah.
Possible that he plays more of a linebacker role. I don't think it speaks to McLeod's health, but
there is so much versatility in the defensive backs room. I mean, you have so many converted safeties now playing linebacker roles as well, and it allows Jim Schwartz to sit there and play such a fast defense.
Oh, exactly. Because, I mean, you look at them, there's so many that have played snaps at linebacker or corners who've played snaps at safety. And it's just so good to have that flexibility because say you keep you keep 5 safeties and keep six cornerbacks. They're not all there. It's not like, oh, my God, they've invested 11 players in 2 positions. No. They invested 11 players in a multitude of positions. Those safeties could become linebackers. Those safeties could become corners. Those corners become safeties. They're so versatile. And that's what I love about the defense that they have built out there, because I think the safeties are leaps and bounds better than they did last year. And the cornerbacks, despite the 2 major injuries, which I'll say Mills is a major injury, but maybe a blessing in disguise. It's given them. I like the defensive backs. I like the cornerbacks. I love the cornerbacks. Sidney Jones looking great. He looks. We talked earlier. He needs to have confidence in his footing. I don't know if you've seen highlights of him in practice, but those are some confident feet. He is not a man who is worried about twisting an ankle and going down and having to get stretchered off. This man has confidence in those ankles and those feet again. And then there's Rasul Douglas, who's thank goodness he didn't no major injury to Sanders, everybody, but he is blowing up on that defense. And Maddox, and then Darby, hopefully he'll be good for week 1. I like the defense, but the injuries are scary. Like I've said, we fielded 13 cornerbacks last year. If we had fielded 4 or 5 less, we very well might have been a Super Bowl contending team, because how many times is it 3rd and long in the playoffs and we watched those corners give up a big play? Like, maybe if we were 4 corners less, maybe if we fielded 9 instead of 13, we would have been in the Super Bowl again and not given up 3rd and 15s and 16s like on every
I love
possession.
the confidence in that. However, we did lose Brandon Brooks, and we would not have been able to run the football at all for the remainder of those 2-3 games that would have been left. But I do dig the confidence.
It's true that but I mean how can you go out there on offense when you know that your team is constantly giving up 3 or 7 points on blowing 3rd downs?
Just ask you that same thing with the freaking Phillies offense about their pitchers giving up 1 million runs.
Exactly. It's kind of similar situation, right? So, I mean, I don't deny how scary the injuries could get, and hopefully they start to go away now because Camus was having a great camp. Mills, take him or leave him, but we'd like to have him there as that hybrid safety option. Um, just Cravon LeBlanc. I mean, yes, we brag about the three big names in the like Maddox and Douglas and Jones right now, but that's it. After that, you got an injured Derby or healing
Oh, you
Derby.
got Lander
Injured
Skandrick.
Cravon.
Throw him in the slot.
Oh, geez, here we go.
I'm just saying he wasn't as bad.
But
as people think.
depth is not there. Is my point. The depth is not really. Skandrick is good, but I think I would rather some of those injured pieces back
Of
more.
course. I do think that they're more so not rushing players back, and it would not shock me if a lot of these injured guys that are questionable, for the ready of the season, they're going to play week 1. Like they're going to be fine. It wouldn't shock me if they get full reps that week leading into the opening week. So I don't have too many concerns yet. To me, I still look at it as, it is training camp and they're probably erring on the side of caution. There's no reason to sit here. And if you're not 100% entering into a practice, maybe take that day off. I think it's more important to get those guys conditioned appropriately in safer ways, whether it's, specifically just cardio conditioning or lifting, or individual drills, which we've seen guys do, participate in individual drills and then, head to the locker room for team drills. I don't have long-term concerns right now with the 7 or 9 pieces on the defensive side of the ball that are hurt.
Well, there are a couple you should concern, I think. I mean, you got Camus, you got Cravon.
Well, that's my tweet.
Jalen Mills is like, what is wrong with him? They say Cravon LeBlanc has a similar injury to Jalen Mills, and Mills hasn't been right since like last January.
Well,
and then
fuck Mills.
What about Matt Collins? You want to talk about Matt Collins?
I do not want to ever talk about Matt Collins.
That man is. No one ever seems to know.
He's the Roman Quinn
wrong
of this team. Breathe, and that guy is going to hurt something.
I don't understand. They're like, it's a groin injury, but we don't know what it is. It's a foot injury, but we don't know what it is. It's like, what's wrong with that man's body? It's a foot injury, but it's suddenly the injury moved up the leg and you can't find it? Like,
who knows, man?
It makes no sense. Well, let's get to yours. Maybe you have a more positive take here.
I do kind of. However, when I selected my tweet, it was pre-Camus injury, but it was from Brandon Lee Gouton, and it was Schwartz says that Camus Grugier-Hill has taken a big step towards being a full-time linebacker, and there was a lot of talk about surprise cuts and ways that they could kind of save some money here and there on this Eagles team and on this Eagles roster for this year. And a surprise name that people were stating was, could they conceivably cut Brown from that safeties room or linebackers room because of the emergence of Camus? Now, obviously, we're not going to cut Brown. He's been incredibly serviceable and consistent over his career in Washington. But to hear those kind of positive words from a guy who really wasn't part of the regular rotation, except for injuries last year.
Well, I mean, look, remember that Dallas game where people were like, kick? Who's Camus? No, and they were just he made the comment and they were like, who said that? Like, no one knew his name, but he was getting ready to make a name for himself. I mean, the kicking was sweet too, but
it was hilarious. Yeah, to see a middle round pick there kind of begin to see that big step in development, which unfortunately it looked like it was going to be this year. And obviously now, since going down with the MCL for 6 to 8 weeks is incredibly unfortunate. But to read everything that we were reading about him, to be able to watch the video and tape on him so far in training camp, for me, he was not the rookie contract guy that I was saying. I think he's the one that breaks out. Like, you and I are both sitting here on the Barnett, like that to me seems like the logical. I think you're the guy that's going to bust it open this year. You're the one who's going to take that big step. Camus was not even on my brain, and I had to consider him because I could not ignore the amount of tweets that were coming in like Brandon Lee Gouton's was right there from that Schwartz interview. The kid was playing on fire, and he looked comfortable and he looked confident, and that to me is, I mentioned how I'm not super concerned right now with all the defensive injuries that are being announced or called as injuries, even though a lot of them, these guys are going to play week 1 regardless. He is one that I'm concerned about.
He'll probably end up on the PUP list to start because they don't expect him back till like week 8.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that far in. I think the week 4 was their tentative date.
Well, they're going to have to you got to make a decision on him at the same time, though, because, you put him on the PUP list, you give him
6 weeks,
optimum time, but that's 6 weeks that they have to be out for sure.
Yep.
So you take the optimum time, or do you roster him and waste a roster spot and hope he's good at 4 weeks?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just going to come down to, one, how healthy the linebackers room stay, how much they can trust in their safety converts to come down and, play a linebacker's role here and there and still be influential in that run game and run stop game too. There are more factors than just the stability of his knee. As much as we would like to sit here and say this is 100% on can you be on the field or can't you, these are NFL players, not unlike NHL players. They're going to be on the goddamn field if you give them the opportunity to. And I think right now it's most important to solidify the pieces around him that allow him or allow the team to sit there and say, nope, we're going to take your time. We are going to PUP list you. And that is what that is.
Absolutely. I don't have any concerns over the middle, like safety, linebacker. My concerns are more with the defensive ends. And really, if I was to say my biggest concern for the year would be defensive end, because after Barnett.
Do you think they make a trade, by the way? Do you think they
are you referencing
the
Clowney?
Do you think it happens? I personally don't.
I personally don't either. Me and LJ talked about this on Kelly Green Hour. I don't think so. He's all for it, but it's not that I'm not all for it. I'm just give the young guys a chance too. You bring Jadeveon Clowney in, next thing you know, it's not a rotational room anymore. You got Barnett and Graham and Clowney, and they're all going to commend lots of snaps. They're all going to commend your 50, 60, 70% of snaps. And then the rest of them are going to be 10, 15%, and you're never going to see what you have in them.
Yeah,
that's my thought, and I know maybe that's just the praying for the future thought process.
No, it's important because they're affordable future pieces right now.
Because, look at Camus. Look at him. I think he wouldn't be where he is without last year when the linebacker room was so light. He built confidence in being the linebacker that he was, and then he came into camp saying, I don't care about Zach Brown. I don't care about LJ Fort. I got a spot on this team. I have a role with this team, and I know I'm going to have that role on this team. And he played with that confidence. But if you take a Joe Ostman who's coming off an injury, and then you stuff him behind Clowney, Curry, Graham, and Barnett, suddenly an Ostman, a Miller, and the others begin more than likely to lose confidence in what they can bring to the team because they know they got Graham, who's under contract, Barnett under contract. You got Clowney.
Well, that's my biggest part.
You spend the assets on to bring in. So
that's
not
the
that I
biggest
would
thing.
not that I wouldn't take Clowney. Like don't get me wrong.
Of course we take Clowney.
If you can get him at a bargain price like the Ajayi trade, a 4th round pick. Well, I know it won't be a 4th, say you get it for a 3rd or something. Don't get me wrong. It's hard to say no to that when you have the cap space. But I'm more in we got a lot of young guys like that young cornerback room that you want to build. And you don't want to stuff them behind more and more people, even if it's for 2 years or 3 years. 2 years in a football career is a long time. 24, and then their first true chance to play is 26. That's a lot of lost time in a game where the average retiring age is the early 30s. So that was my perspective on the Clowney.
Yeah, like I said, and very similar. My only add is the fact that for me, you have to find ways to find affordable talent, and those first round picks with the extra 5th year option there become that much more important when you draft well. And then the 4-year rookie contract deals that these guys are on, they become that much more important because there may be a time where you can't afford to pay all the pieces you would like to pay, and it's gonna
Dallas
happen.
Cowboys.
So exactly, they have like 19 players they have to sign, all of whom are incredibly talented. They can't sign all them. It's never going to happen. They're going to have to make the difficult decision on Zeke right now. They're going to pay Zeke. They're going to pay Dak, and they're going to have nothing left for the linebackers over there, and Smith and Van Der Esch. Obviously Mari Cooper. Like they're in cap hell.
Their offensive line,
way.
they have one of. I mean, we hate to admit it, but they're up there with us, top 5 offensive line in the league, and. It's so you don't want to be in that position, and you bring on a Jadeveon Clowney. Barnett's going to get paid soon too. Let's not rule that out. The man is in his 3rd year, so he's coming up too. So assuming he proves that games balls out big this year, well then suddenly we have to pay another big defensive end. So I mean, how he worked to get that cap space, and it's good that we have $20 million in cap space. That leaves you some flexibility if some issues come up, not to just go out and pick up a big name for name's sake. But I mean,
agree.
not that I'm not worried about the defensive end room. I think there's cheaper alternatives than Jadeveon Clowney for the defensive ends. You got Graham, you got Barnett. They're going to eat up 75% plus percent of the snaps. So that's my thoughts. Bring in cheap rotational backs to replace a Joe Ostman.
That is pretty much where I am at as well. Let's skip ahead to our next. We got a 76ers take or a Flyers take. So I'll let you choose which one we go forth with.
Let's go Sixers. I mean, at least for me, this is the most positive that it's going to get. Because the Flyers were talking about depressing contract situations.
Fair enough.
So let's go with so I like the Trey Burke signing. You seemed to be on the fence and wanted the Korver signing. So I pulled a tweet for you to build some confidence, a couple to build some confidence. So this is from Ben Dietrich at B Dietrich, blue checkmark. Trey Burke was a fantastic offensive player on relegated 2017-18 Knicks and a good one on quasi-relegated Mavs last season. Can't defend a rudimentary meat and cheese platter, but that's not what you signed him for. So that's one. I love the meat and cheese platter. Great. This other one from Tom West at Tom West NBA. Having Trey Burton for some extra ball handling and shooting off the bench, including a bit off the dribble, is going to be really useful for the Sixers after having poor backup point guard play and spacing issues last season. So lighten the mood a little bit. I like the signing. I think it's a really good signing. Korver can play off the dribble. I think Trey Burke can play better off the dribble. Trey Burke cannot defend worth shit, and we do know that. Could Korver defend a whole lot better? Probably a little bit better. But I just think Trey Burke was a better option. He's good off, and he gives you that depth at the point guard position.
Would you have taken him or taken a flyer on the retired Monte Ellis?
I like Trey Burke. I'm going to go Trey Burke. I'm going to stick with Trey Burke.
You're going to go for someone who can't play a lick of defense and who isn't that great of a shooter, but is a volume shooter.
Are we gonna sit there and try and say that our backup point guard last year, T.J. McConnell, was a defensive machine?
Hey, he can defend the hell out of a CYO room.
You absolutely are correct. but
he was fine.
He was okay, but I mean, you're not. If you got a guy who's going to go out there and he can nail some big threes, hit some big shots, give your point guard, give Simmons a break, give whoever might be playing point guard that night a break, you give him 5-10 minutes here or there, whatever he's going to bring on the offensive end, plus the support he'll have on the defensive end, I think is more important in this situation. I think he will bring more to the offensive game and more than what McConnell was bringing, more than what Korkmaz was bringing, even though he's back.
Yeah,
So
hilarious.
at the end of the day, I think Trey Burke will end up having more importance than we think, and he will bring very good good 5 to 10 minutes every game when we need it. Whereas TJ McConnell, I'm sorry, I couldn't trust him for those 5 or 10 minutes. You couldn't. It was just like Boban. You couldn't trust a guy to go out and give you those 10 minutes. Like that.
You
That's
could,
just,
but it needed to be against the right opponent for both of those guys.
It needed to be against a really sluggish ass centerman who was just as slow as him, basically. So Trey Burke can't play defense. Let's not dwell, okay? But what he brings on the offensive end to this team, who lost a JJ Redick and a Jimmy Butler, I think Trey Burke is very useful. He'll come out, he'll give you your 3 or 4, hopefully your 2 to 4 3-pointers. He'll help space the floor out. How many times did our bench come on and you watch those guys basically run into each other because they couldn't space the floor out to save their life? Like that's
the way they were constructed.
Well, that's true, but I mean that's just, I think he brings more to the offensive game, and you hope that the people around him when he's out are not just a bunch of guys who can't defend either. Or else, yes, you're gonna have an issue. But that's my thoughts on Trey Burke. I would take Trey Burke over Kyle Korver.
So I kind of took an approach as to not Trey Burke over Kyle Korver, but what the Trey Burke signing means for Shake, because that, to me, you sign him to a 5-year deal. At a certain point, you're not going to just let this, piece that you believe in as the ultimate, or who will ultimately be the backup point guard, signing him to that deal, or 4-year deal, I guess it is, he has to play. And then they got Raul Neto, who is a better 3-point shooter than Trey Burke, even though he has significantly lesser stat lines or shots per year and per game to truly back that up. But let's not pretend that, that Trey Burke is some phenomenal 3-point shooter. He's like a career 34% three ball shooter. And like, that's okay. It's not like lights out, so to me, this is the thing that I don't want to happen. And I talked about this on TJ's One of Us with Scott, our new co-host there, is my biggest fear and concern is that Brett Brown kind of goes a little Doug Collins-y and falls in love with the veterans over the guys who you truly need to develop in situations that you can afford to let them fuck up. Jonah Bolden last year, there is no reason that Jonah Bolden was unplayable in the second half of the year and in the playoffs. No reason. They needed to let him play. He wasn't going to cost you games in the regular season. And even if he did, it's the regular goddamn season of the NBA. That honestly means next to fucking nothing. That's how long the playoffs go. You just have to be average in the East and you get into the playoffs. And if you're that good and that talented and that deep, like the Sixers are, who gives a shit if you're ranked number 3 or 4 instead of 1 or 2? No one. Play Jonah last year. This year, I'm terrified that he's going to fall in love with that veteran presence of what Trey Burke is and don't get me wrong, there are games where he's going to go out there, whether it's Ben's getting the night off or where Ben gets in foul trouble early or something of the sort. And Trey Burke's going to go out there and score 35 and shoot 60-something% from the floor and 45% from 3. Like, it's going to happen. And he's going to fall in love with Trey Burke, a barely average NBA player, instead of developing and using those crucial moments early in the season, in the regular season, for a guy like Shake or even Raul Neto for that matter. He could be serviceable off the bench as well. I'm not completely against Trey Burke. I'm just really concerned with how Brett Brown is going to use him and then utilize the development time period of Shake, because it's very, very fucking important to develop him. It's important to develop all of them.
I absolutely agree. We have some great young talent in our system. And I mean, you can't rule out that how important Shake can be. Even in the times that he did come up to the NBA, I don't think he got serviceable minutes when he
No.
was up here. And people were like, "Oh, he went out there and played 5 minutes and looked like shit." Well, 3 minutes of that is warming up. I mean, you're barely getting your feet wet here. You're like, so like you need, and same with Jonah Bolden. I like Jonah Bolden. There's a lot of people who bash him, but I mean, it's no worse than the fact that we let Boban play a bunch of minutes. If you can let Boban play a bunch of minutes, why can you not let Jonah play?
Exactly.
If you can let TJ McConnell play the minutes, why not Jonah? Why not Shake? All these times we brought Shake up after massive games down in the G League, and he got 5 minutes, and people are like, well, why didn't he put up 10 points? Why didn't he get like 4 assists and 3 rebounds? And why didn't he go off? You got to give the volume. You got to give the minutes. And if you're going to sit there and give a guy 5 minutes and sit him for the rest of the game, he's not going to give you serviceable minutes. So, I mean, I do agree within reason. I just think that you learn from your mistakes. My hope is that Brett Brown adapts and he learns from his mistakes from last year. You know what you have. You have some amazing young talent in the G League, and a lot of those are NBA ready talent, but you have to use
Patton. Holy shit! I got to text Scott. I couldn't remember the name of the center that came over in the deal with Jimmy Butler this week. It was like 5 days ago that he and I recorded our TJ's One of Us, and I couldn't remember his freaking name. And
Justin Patton.
Yep. Jesus. Anyway, continue. Sorry. It just popped into my head when you were sitting here talking about G League and developmental guys.
But that's basically the point is that I hope that he has learned and he has adapted, because I agree. I saw that a lot last year. You're giving these guys who are probably tapering off or never really flared up, and they're not going to, all this opportunity because they've been in the league longer, and you wasted opportunity with a Shake Milton or a Jonah Bolden or even a Justin Patton. When he came over, he barely saw the court. Yes,
he had a broken
injured.
foot, but
he came in injured, but when healthy, he saw the G League. But he had played time in the NBA. So you might as well give him that time to play in the NBA. I mean, like you said, it really doesn't matter. Look at the playoffs. You get to the playoffs, and those guys do give you 5 minutes, and they are a non-serviceable 5 minutes. They are, hey, Ben, you want 5 minutes? You want 2 minutes to breathe this half? Okay, take a seat. We'll put this guy in for 2 minutes. That is the length of the NBA season. And it showed in the Raptors how important it is to give your guys time to breathe. And I hope he learns from the Raptors in their handling of Kawhi Leonard with Joel Embiid this year. A little off topic, but it has to happen. I hate the Raptors. I hate that they won the championship. I am the world's worst Canadian. But please, if there is one thing you learn, if Embiid plays you 50, 55 games a year at 30 minutes a game, and he can play every damn game in the playoffs, almost every second of the playoffs like Kawhi Leonard, you have done your job right. So we can only hope that he learns from his mistakes last year, because it sounds like we're at a crossroads where we want Brett Brown to learn from mistakes. And Brett Brown learning from his mistakes will be way more valuable than any free agent we've signed.
That's a take. I like that. That is certainly one you should probably ship over to one of our neighboring podcasts. So my tweet, and we're not going to discuss it. We've discussed the Sixers point almost ad nauseum now. It was a Serena Winters tweet, but it was just quoting an Elton Brand interview post the Trey Burke signing. Elton stated, Trey's experience as a ball handler matched with his scoring ability makes him a good fit for our roster. We're excited to welcome him to the 76ers and look forward to having him look forward to the positive impact that he can have on our team. So really generic, really just this is what every GM is going to say about everyone. But the one thing that I kind of took from this was the fact that the last time I truly saw Trey Burke handle the basketball was in college. And he was a very different player to me in college than what he has become in the NBA. And it's almost because the rosters that he has been on don't necessarily allow for that one-to-one kind of comparison and style of play for Burke. So I started watching. This tweet forced me to watch different YouTube videos of him during his time with the Knicks and with the Mavs and things like that. And I don't love him by any means. I'm a big defense guy, considering that's what Brett Brown is, and what almost the entirety of our offseason was spent doing was building a dominant defensive roster. But then I sat there and I thought, you know what? 4 stud defensive players on the floor with him, with extreme athleticism and great on-ball skills. Okay, stick him on anyone who
90% of the rest of our roster.
Exactly. So I'm not overly concerned with him on defense. He's certainly still a liability, but I feel like he's going to be able to be in the positives far more than he's going to be in the negatives in his 5, 8, 10, 12 minutes a night. And then I watched him with the basketball. And while what he does isn't always flashy by any means, he is quick and he's very decisive. And I don't think that I would have taken that away just from my watching him casually over the years, as I watch all NBA teams and players over the years. But watching this tweet in this interview forced me to go ahead and kind of diagnose his play a little bit more. And his decisiveness with the basketball, almost like he knows exactly what he wants to do before a play even allows itself to form on court. He already has a read on those things. Now, he's not a great shooter, which makes some of those decisions as well, decisive and quick. Good. Those decisions end up not looking great because he's not knocking down those shots. But if he can get hot and if the situation can be right and he can gain confidence in a city that's very difficult to gain confidence in, but I take a look at a player like Mike Scott, who was kind of average at best and like probably not really long for the NBA, until he came to Philadelphia. And now we see the way that the fan base has embraced him and how he has now in turn embraced the city. That could happen for a guy like Trey Burke, who was a very, very exciting player in college, drafted number 8 or 9 overall, came in with, some legitimate hype and upside behind him, and he never really flourished into what that was supposed to be. If he can be even remotely that off the bench here, Philadelphia's going to fucking love him. And I think that's incredibly, incredibly important.
I absolutely agree. I mean, like, if we could watch JJ Redick chase a guy he's guarding around for 82 games plus the playoffs, we can watch Trey Burke on defense too. And I think there's a lot of potential. Like we have a lot of just lanky, athletic, defensive-minded guys. You need some of those guys who will take the ball and say, I'm shooting this, and shoot it. They don't have to ask permission. How many times? I mean, we can remember that game in the playoffs where we sat there and we ran the shot clock to zeros on 3 straight possessions. A guy like Trey Burke takes that, puts that shot up. He hits it. He doesn't hit it.
Hurt.
Exactly. But
he turned his ankle.
You hit the shot or you don't hit the shot. We got no points out of those 3 possessions. So what difference does it make if he jacks up a triple and he misses? At least it's a decisive decision that's been made. First of all, he would never be in a position like that. So to less than 2 minutes left and Trey Burke on the court, there must be some bad problems. But
he's just super hot that day.
You get what I'm saying though. Like, you have him go out there, and if he's willing to make that tough decision, say, I'm shooting this ball. It's kind of like JJ Redick. He took the ball, he shot it. Shot it at will almost. No, Trey Burke is not JJ Redick. He is a dirt cheap homeless man's JJ Redick, but we will take it for what it is.
He doesn't have a quick release like JJ either. He's more of a make it and create his own shot versus an off-ball guy, but that's fine. Before we roll into our Flyers topic, another word from one of our other sponsors is Just Food, 215-794-FOOD. That's 215-794-3663. Treat yourself, take it home. Connor, if you ever do visit us down here in the Philly area, I promise you I will take you to Just Food for lunch. You can go and stop in their shop. It is in Buckingham Green Shopping Center in Bucks County, PA, just above Peddler's Village if you're familiar with the area. Rob over there, Asian Rob, he will feed you. He and his team over at Just Food have great Great menu options, very unique menu. They also do have a far more simplified menu if your palate is not quite as refined. But everything you get from them is absolutely delicious. They also do catering services. So if you have weddings, if you have grad parties, if you have just Sunday barbecues and you want to get lazy and not in fact barbecue, but just stand next to a grill and eat outside, they will provide you with delicious barbecue food as well. Again, that is Just Food, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home. So we'll roll into our final point today. It is, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, Connor, our Philadelphia Flyers take, and it is breaking down the TK and Provy contract situations. Bridge, long-term deal, either or neither. So you started the last one, or did I start the last one? What are we doing here?
I started the last one. I brought the power of positivity, so
right.
Go ahead.
So I will bring this one home with my tweet then. This is from, and if you guys don't follow this guy, he is hilarious and his content is wonderful on Twitter. It is Mikey D, ONBP. So his tweet reads, over under, the Flyers will post 8 tweets about Gritty between now and when they announce one of Provorov's or Konecny's extensions.
Oh,
and to me,
that sounds like something you should probably bring up with L. Let him know you're ready to you're gambling man.
Well, I mean, I can't now. This tweet is from like, I think the day that I made or picked the topics for us.
Hey, so see, L doesn't need to know.
Well, that's hurtful. What if he listens to our segment for a change?
This is a chance to win. This is a chance to win. Well then, I'm sorry that this happened. He'll think really a lot next time he's betting with you. He'll be like, he's gonna try and screw me.
Let's try to be Marty McFly from Back to the Future. I'll just travel back in time, figure out what happens, come back, and I'll still find a way to lose bets to LJ or my father. So what stood out to me is the fact that I could laugh at this tweet because, again, almost everything he has is brilliant, and there is logic behind his tweets, a lot of logic, probably more so than what there is in most Flyers writers, period. But there's also like an underlying way to connect to you as a person and as a fan. And I look at this and I'm like, man, there is a ridiculousness about this that is so true that the Philadelphia Flyers have tweeted X amount of things about Gritty or things that don't truly matter, and they've gone silent on Provorov and Konecny. And we sit there and we see players of comparable, stat lines and places in their career to that of Provorov or Konecny, and some of them have been signed, some of them are also in contract limbo. And I take a look at these guys and take Konecny, for example, 3 years into the league, 28 points, 47 points, 49 points, 24 goals each of the last 2 seasons, 23 assists 2 years ago, 25 last year. He hit about 97 posts and a half last season, so there's a strong possibility that he could have gotten to, 113 goals last year had he just not hit the fucking post all the time. But he has all the makings of a very, very exciting goal scorer. I don't know that he's ever going to sit there and be a 1-to-1 goals to assists guy in that ratio that he has put together through 3 years in his career, as he's been put up very similar numbers. He's going to, in my mind, probably be one of those guys that puts up 30, 35 goals, but maybe 25 assists. I think there's going to be a little bit of a difference there, but he's a player that you're going to have to pay. And with the contract situation and the cap situation and which guys are coming up in the next 2 years, what you got to pay Patrick, you're going to have to pay Hart, you're going to have to pay Sanheim, and you're going to have to pay, like, it's insane. Myers, all these guys that are coming up, and you're going to have to determine bridge deal or long-term. Couturier and Giroux both are up in 2 years. Couturier is going to have a massive contract. Giroux is going to have a pretty hefty number, even at age 35 or 34, whatever he'll be by the time that contract comes up. Provorov over 3 years, again, 30 points, 41 points. Last year was a down year at 26 points. Didn't find his offensive game. Overall, last year was not a great year for Ivan Provorov, so it should, in theory, help the Philadelphia Flyers in their negotiation tactics right now to get a more favorable number, whether it be for bridge or long term. But he seems to not be budging. He and his agent right now still believe that he is worth upwards of $7.5–8.5 million a year he wants long term, 7–8 years. He wants that kind of contract because he knows so long as he is a member of the Philadelphia Flyers, he's going to be utilized as every zone defenseman. He's going to play power play. He's going to play penalty kill, and he's going to be a top pair guy. And those guys get fucking paid. And he knows that. Even after a down year, he and his agent know that. So they're putting him in a tough position. Right now, you should take the silence and the joke that was Mikey D's tweet here as I don't think the Flyers have a fucking clue what they can do. And it concerns the hell out of me that they're sitting here weighing the options right now as to, do we sell high on one of these two guys, and do we try to, continue to replenish some assets that are going to be more affordable when the time comes to be paying? Like I said, Sean Couturier, Claude Giroux, these guys are going to need to get paid, and we don't have the dollars to do it. Neither one of these guys seem to be ready to take a team-friendly deal right now. So that's my kind of taking concern right now about the Provy thing is I seem to think, or I can see, I don't think the Flyers have any idea what the hell they're doing and what the direction is going to be for either of those particular contract situations.
Well, let's just think we could be Minnesota interviewing Hextall. So I got 2 tweets. Speaking of Konecny and comparables, I got one right here. Flyers Nerd tweeted out a quick look at what Travis.
I saw this one.
Yeah, quick look at what Travis Konecny's new contract could look like this summer. Konecny posted very similar numbers to Bo Horvat in his first 3 years before Horvat got a 6-year, $5.5 million deal. Wouldn't be surprised if Konecny gets a similar deal, and the numbers are very similar. Horvat, Konecny, 231 games played by Horvat, 233 by Konecny. It was goals scored was 49 for Horvat, 59 for Konecny. The assists 68 for Horvat, 65 for Konecny. Shots on goal, Konecny was at 492, had many more than Horvat. And takeaways 95 to 77, and faceoffs won. Horvat has about 1,930 more faceoffs won. But he got 6 years at $5.5 million average contract. So, I mean, that is scary because there's a lot of other comparable contracts out there for Konecny that are a lot more team friendly. But it seems to be that Konecny feels he is worth the Horvat type deal. That 5.5, not that 4 or 4.5. So, I mean, it's a tough decision to make, I think, and I understand why Fletcher's having such a hard time making the decision. I mean, he did. I don't want to say waste money on Hayes because you know what, I'm the positive Flyers fan, as you know. So I'm going to say that it's money well spent. But I mean, you did spend a bunch of money there. You have a brutal. I know that you will argue with me on this, but he has a brutal contract in Jake Voracek that I think needs to be unloaded eventually in order to get Couturier, Hart, Patrick, Giroux. That type of contract needs to get unloaded at some point. So, I mean, it is a difficult decision to make. Do you pay Konecny $5.5, $6 million, $5 million? But if the debate is there, it must be heading towards north of like $6 million if the debate's there. And then
again, unless these guys are settling for bridge deals and trying to bet on themselves again and get an even more inflated contract, the cap's going to rise again,
which could be worse. If Provorov bridges and he puts up a season like he did the year before,
I would sign right now. Travis Konecny, I would be open to bridge dealing because I feel as though what he has done right now, and especially because the contract that was in mind and that tweet that you had was the same tweet that I had, he is a higher paid number than what I would give Travis Konecny right now. But I don't think that he wouldn't be worth it eventually. So I would go long-term Provy. Bridge deal,
I'd go
TK.
like you go Konecny, you go 2 years, $5.5 million, give him his $5.5 million. By that point, you have a couple big contracts that are coming up, and you can weigh it. Do we want to keep Konecny? And then by that point, you move up, you have Farabee up, you will have a lot of pieces up that you can say, okay, we can move Voracek, maybe we can move on from Konecny. Let's say, take a moment to praise Ron Hextall for the farm system he built for us.
Oh, for sure.
There, praise done. But I mean, he built a farm system that gave a lot of flexibility. in my opinion. And then this leads into my next tweet at D Silver, a man at Dan Silver. Yeah. A great follow if you don't follow him. He is currently he is defending the Flyers like there's no tomorrow on Twitter. So if you are a optimistic, happy Flyers fan, go over and help Dan out. He's fighting a good fight. He says, I love Ivan Provorov as much as the next guy, but I don't agree that we should just open the checkbook for him. Since he's not a PP1 point producer, I don't even think there's a huge risk in the Flyers giving him a bridge, although I'd be fine with $7 million over 6 to 7 years. If he is willing to go lower,
that's the number I would take.
If he's willing to go slightly lower and take that 7 years, I would be okay with that. If you can get him to go to $7 million, but if he wants $8 million over 7 years, that's where you gotta say, whoa. Let's do 2 years. That's $16 million. Give you your money, but you prove it, kind of thing. And then you may risk having to pay him even more down the road or moving him. But I mean, I see why it's such a hard thing to make the decision on. So many people would sit there and say, I got $14 million cap space. Here's $8 million for Provorov and here's $6 million for Konecny. Done, with not a thought process to the future. Because these are the same people who are sitting there and saying, oh, that Braun deal was terrible. Oh, that Niskanen deal was terrible. Those guys are 1 and 2 years signed respectively. Calm down. They are off the books as quickly as they came to the team. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you do have to think about the future. Provorov can be an asset that you can take for the future. Konecny is someone, I agree with you. I would bridge Konecny for 2 years, try and get him to go at $5 million a year. Whereas Provorov invests at $7 million because he could turn into that $11 millionaire Carlson down the road. And you may have gotten a steal.
The power play.
He doesn't have the shot. I know he doesn't have the PP1. He doesn't have the shot. But I mean, you could be looking at a Carlson-like player minus the PP1 the quarterback of the PP1 unit. But I mean, you could get a steal if you can get him to go 7 years, $7 million, and he turns out to have an average that should be at the $9-10 million point. Yeah, so I'm in the same. I'm definitely in the same boat as you. But people have to understand. You have to have an eye for the future as well. As I say this, I remember that we just talked about the Hayes deal, which has very little eyes to the future. But I mean, at the same time, you have to have eyes of the future with these people. You have to think, we got Farabee coming up. We got Cam York coming up. We got Bobby Brink coming up. There is so many people coming up. Eventually, some of these guys are going to have to go. The sad reality is just like the Dallas Cowboys. Sometimes some people will have to go. And that's the sad reality to the Flyers and having the amazing farm system they have. People will have to go, and there will be contracts that we just cannot afford.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In the Flyers, while I would love to give them more time, the storm is getting increasingly worse here and where I'm at, and I am fearful that the longer we talk right now that we will lose power and I will not have the ability to save this pod before it stops. So do you have any quick final thought here before I wrap this up?
Nope. I think we hit it pretty good there. We were a little over an hour, so I think we're good.
Yeah, man. As always, look, it was good having you back on again. I'm glad we got another Crossing Borders in. Did you know that this segment and the Whiskey Ramble segment are two like non-traditional Core 4 shows, are our most listened to pods across ANYP right now?
There we go. That's what you need.
How brilliant is that?
It's great, isn't it?
I love it.
I love it too. And now people just got to bring us the takes. We don't want to use the blue check mark. I don't want to use the blue check mark. Bring us your takes. Anything.
Yes.
And we may call you a complete idiot, but we may also praise you and shower you with love.
Yeah, you never know. You never know where you're going to go. I may do both in the same sentence. Who knows? And you can do that by emailing us at It is anypodcastteam@gmail.com. So we've started to utilize that email address more. We've used it for mail take bags on several of our other shows, whether it be in Cap We Trust or our new Philadelphia Eagles show, Backyard Beers and Football, or my other show. What the hell's the other one I host? TJ's One of Us.
Or better yet, you take it to the Twitter world and you defend it with all your heart.
I would so love if people did put more things on Twitter.
If people want me to defend them on Twitter, you put out a good take, you put out a raw take, I will help you out. Go to Twitter. Don't hide behind an email address. Stand in front of that Twitter handle.
I hope you do. I hope people do. So any of you listeners here. So if you do have takes on something, maybe you know what we should do, Connor. Maybe what we should do is 3 days before, when we settle in on our topics, right before we do research, we should post the screenshot of our topics and allow people to send tweets in about those. That way we
kind of hinted at it on Twitter with when you made your usual 7:05 take last night.
All right. Well, I will do the same, and we'll do it from the podcast account as well. We'll start giving you guys our 4 kind of general ideas as to what our takes are going to be for the week. And then we'd love if you brought it to the Twitter world. I know Connor would love if you brought it to the Twitter world to defend your takes and your thoughts.
Man, which
congratulations, by the way. You're really growing that following over there. Well done.
Email is like snail mail now. Man, you might as well send me mail to my mailbox if you're going to email me.
I still accept emails and snail mail. However the hell you want to talk to us here at ANYP, I don't really give a shit. I just want some content rolling in. But that's going to be it. You guys can also check in on our website. We have recently brought in a brand new team of writers for ANYP. We're very excited about all of them. They are writing primarily Phillies baseball right now. I do have a couple guys dabbling in some Flyers and a few guys dabbling in some Sixers. So if you want to write on Flyers, Sixers, or definitely if you want to write on the Eagles for us, you're going to ask for L. You're going to send an email to our podcast account that I put there. You can DM us on Twitter. Our Twitter account is @ANYPodcast. If you, again, want to read any of these writers' new pieces that they're coming out with, weekly stuff, we have stuff that comes out just as content flows. It is www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. You can also find our podcast on our website if you just want to sit there and take a quick listen without subscribing, although I highly, highly recommend that you do so. You would love this segment and all of our segments here at ANYP. For Connor up there in Canada, the worst Canadian in the history of Canadians, I am Shane of ANYP, and we will see you next week with another episode of Crossing Borders.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever fight me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such eagle my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.